Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. I feel like the last few weeks I've been fairly stressed about life and house things, but I'm hoping now that we can have a couple of weeks of like low stress Christmas. That's the kind of Christmas I prefer. And hopefully, if things can remain somewhat low stress, I will be able to make good progress on Wind and Truth. Now, I only have the ebook copy. I have ordered the hardback copy. I spoiled myself by buying the American hardcovers, but because New Zealand's default is the UK covers, the horrible, these white ones, I hate the white covers. They're so boring. I don't understand why you would choose those boring ass white covers when you could have Michael Whalen's beautiful art. Like, what a stupid decision. Anyway, so because I have bought the US edition, it's not going to come till early next year, probably. Hopefully the start of January, but who really knows? But that's fine. I've got the ebook, so I'll be reading the ebook. And I have actually already read the prologue. I really liked it. Definitely a lot of interesting world stuff coming to fruition and a lot of the links into the bigger Cosmere becoming apparent. I really don't know how you would read those bits if you hadn't read like Mistborn or any of those other books on the Cosmere. There's definitely things in there that are purely hints for people who've read the other Cosmere books. But anyway, as well, I can see that this book is divided into 10 days. So most of the other Stormlight books have been 5 parts. This one is 10 days, which makes a lot of sense for the events that are going on in this book, as well as kind of the whole world of the Stormlight Archives is based around the number 10. So it's a significant number. I might try and update you at the end of each day, not the end of each of my real days, but the end of each book day, which will probably be quite different. But I also suspect this is going to be a vlog of a couple of weeks, and then I probably won't get through all of Wind and Truth because that's a lot, and also it's Christmas, so I guess by the time I get this up it'll be after Christmas, but right now it's before Christmas, so as I said, we're trying to relax and be not stressed. As well, I am listening to some audiobooks. So I'm listening at the moment to the second book in the Edge novels by Ilona Andrews. Ilona Andrews being an author I really love. They do write kind of like paranormal romance books, but they're so well written that the romance tends to be actually quite a small part of the books. They also have like really great action and humor and world building and plot. Like usually they're really great. I will admit I've only just gotten into the second book, Bayou Moon. Is that how you say it? We don't really have bios here in New Zealand, so I don't know. But I've only just started it and I'm not loving it as much as the first book, but I think it's maybe just a little bit of a rocky introduction, and then I expect that it will get great because I have a lot of faith in Ilona Andrews. So, Wind and Truth, I am now into day 2, and I'm realizing that this is going to be really hard to talk about without spoilers, but I am really having a good time. There's kind of some weird new things, not really new, but kind of new being introduced that I'm a bit surprised by. Our characters are in interesting situations. There's a lot of like bigger Cosmere links in there. Like I've been underlining quite a few of those, but also underlining some lines that I really like. I think some of the themes that Brandon's touching on, maybe he's not necessarily doing that much interesting with them in my opinion, but like I know some people love some of what he's doing, but I don't necessarily know that I like the way the plot is dealing with the themes, but sometimes he still has these lines that I think are very well written, like really get across the point of what he's trying to say. So I'm underlining quite a lot of those. And I'm feeling like I'm getting through this pretty quickly. Like it's saying now that I'm 12% of the way through and I've got 34 hours to go. And I feel like quite often when I start a Kobo book, I feel like it's quite a long time before the time starts going down at the speed that I'm reading it. But I think now that's what it's doing. So I actually think 34 hours to go is not that bad. Like delusional me is now thinking, could I actually finish Wind and Truth by the end of the year? Is that possible? Because now that I've like removed house stress from my life and we've just got Christmas coming, and actually there's some rain forecast because even though it's summer for Christmas in New Zealand, like at least half the time it rains on Christmas Day, right? It's just the way it has to work. So I might still actually get a decent amount of reading time over the next little while. I don't know. I'm probably being delusional, but I'm making good progress so far anyway. I do also want to mention Bayou Moon. I really need to look up how to say that. So I went on a run yesterday and I was listening to it, and I thought from what was happening that I was getting near the end, but I realized I'm now actually only just halfway through. I don't think this is as good as the previous book in the series. I think I'm not connecting with the characters as well, even though I still think the world is really good and there are some interesting things going on, but I'm not really engaged in the romance. And I feel like the plot is a little bit all over the place, although I'm saying that, like, actually, I'm still having a good time with it. I think maybe I had this idea that I would binge this whole series in December for a lot of fun, because Ilona Andrews' books are always fun, and I am having a fun time with this. But I think reading it straight after the other book, and because it is actually following different characters, it's kind of emphasizing the fact that a lot of Ilona Andrews' main characters are very similar, and normally that doesn't bother me, but I think maybe it's just reading these two close together isn't the best, and maybe if I'd had a little bit more of a gap, I would have enjoyed it more. I think I would have been enjoying this more if it had been the same character. I'm a little bit annoyed that it's not. So there are still some good things in it, but it's just not as good as the first book. But I'll go for another run tomorrow and try and finish that off. I'm always delusional. I won't finish it off tomorrow, but we'll see. And then I'll be reading day 2 of Wind and Truth.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in.
Hello, so I am very red and sweaty from my run, so please ignore that. And once again, I'm attempting to film in the wind, so we'll see how well it goes. The wind is a supporter of some of our characters in Wind and Truth, but not so much a fan of me, it seems like. Anyway, what do I want to update you on? Wind and Truth. So I did last night while I was... Oh, ding dong. Good, it's only 9:45. Anyway, what was I saying? So I finished day 2 of Wind and Truth while I was just before bed last night. And I want to preface this by saying, like, I am enjoying it. There's a lot to really love about this series, and Wind and Truth is definitely pulling me in. I feel invested, but let's be honest, what are these plans that our main characters are making? Like, even the whole thing that kind of came together in book 4, Rhythm of War, and that's kind of the whole thing that Wind and Truth is based around. The whole thing, like, has never made sense to me. And finally, on day 2, they're like, so we probably need a plan to win. Yeah, like, maybe you shouldn't have made that agreement without any kind of plan. That's what I've been thinking all along, like, what a stupid plan. And another one of our characters is kind of in this situation where they're like a spy and doing infiltration things. And those plans also always terrible. And then another character is off kind of trying to do like some therapist work. And do they have a plan? Even though like what they want to do is really critical. And there's no planning. What is this? Like, ridiculous. And we're talking about like an end of the world, apocalyptic, life or death kind of situation. Why are none of these characters taking this seriously and putting together a proper plan? Driving me mad. Very annoying. Anyway, what we also got on, I gotta keep switching my hands around because my arms get too sore holding my phone up. What we also got in day 2 is a flashback. So most of the Stormlight Archive books have like a character's backstory as part of it. This one, I won't say what character it is. However, what I will say is there is a sheep, a pet sheep, and Molly the sheep. If anything bad happens to Molly the sheep, I am also going to be very mad because I love Molly the sheep, even though she hasn't really done anything except be a sheep. But kind of this backstory is set in a different kind of area of the world than we've seen before, and the presence of sheep has just really made it feel very New Zealander-y to me, even though, like, where are the sheep? There's none here, but we do have a fair amount. Anyway, I love Molly the sheep, but I'm very frustrated with all our characters and their lack of planning, so I guess we'll see where they go with that next. The other thing, so I finished listening to Bayou Moon. In the end, I did like it. Like, the plot, there was so much plot in the end. It was kind of overwhelming. I do think, though, that I would have liked it more if I'd taken a break between On the Edge and Bayou Moon, so I'm not going to continue on with that series like I was planning. Like I was going to go straight into book 3 and then book 4, but I think actually usually when I read through a series I'll read just one book a month, and I think that's better than just binging through it because it just gets a bit too much of the same and then I don't appreciate it as much. I feel like that definitely affected my enjoyment of Bayou Moon. Like it was still really good. There was so much going on and like so much to like about it, and I did really like the characters and I loved the family that was there and just like so many things about it. Super great, had a lot of fun, but it was just a bit too much after having just read On the Edge, and like that change of characters was kind of a bit weird without a gap. Anyway, so since I'm not going to be continuing that series, I decided the audiobook I am going to pick up is The Book of Koli by Carey. So this is one of my top priority series that I'm super excited for. I think actually a 5-star prediction as well. And so far I am loving it. I feel like Carey is super underhyped. So it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic type situation where the trees now are not taking any shit from humans and they are killers, and so humans are kind of living in these isolated villages, but as well there is technology, like old technology that only certain people can use, and so when you get to a certain age you get tested to see whether the technology will work for you, and like these little villages are quite dependent on the small bits of technology that they have. So the world is really interesting. And then as well, we're following this character named Koli from when he's kind of a young boy in this village and he's going to be tested. But it's set up as he's telling you the story about how he's done all these crazy things that have affected the world and how maybe that story isn't what you might have thought it would be or thought it was. Just the whole setup is really great. And the writing style, like it's written in kind of a very rural English, like the grammar's not always perfect, but it really suits the character, and the audiobook narration is really great. So I am having a great time with that. I'm not very far through. I can't tell you how far because I'm filming on my phone, which is what I'm also listening to it on, but I'm going to keep listening to that. I'm just going to go pick up a library hold, go to the supermarket, go home, so I should be able to listen to a decent amount of it while I'm doing that, and then hopefully this afternoon I want to try and film some other videos because I'm a bit behind on that, but hopefully I can also find some time for Wind and Truth, because delusional me is still thinking maybe I could finish it by the end of the year, but like realistic doing the maths penny is like, no, I don't think so. But if I want to try and like lean into delusional penny, which I would like to, then I need to try and find some decent reading time every day. Hello. So I have finished day 3 of Wind and Truth, and actually Wind and Truth felt a little bit shorter than some of the other days, or than day 1 and 2. That's all I've gotten through so far. However, I also had a package arrive, and this is going to be Wind and Truth. So I figure once I open it, I'll be able to get a better idea of like how long each of the days are, because I find it a little bit annoying on my ebook reader, on my Kobo, to tell like how much of the day I've got. Like obviously it gives me an estimate of how long to get through the chapter and how long it takes to get through the book, but I want an estimate of how much it's going to take me to get through the part or the day. Anyway, let's open this up. It's exciting. Actually, do I have scissors? No, just a dangerous craft knife. I mean, I know the point of craft knives is to be not dangerous, but still dangerous in my hands. What I'm noticing straight away is that there is no like rain protection, and this book was delivered like no signature required, so it's quite possible it could have been left on a doorstep, and if this had been destroyed by the rain, it is minutely damaged. Should I worry about it? Probably not. Anyway, here it is. I have the book. I mean, I've already seen this cover art. I will admit, if you look at the art without the word Brandon Sanderson, it was Petrick Leo that pointed this out to me. If you look at the art without those words, it's actually way better. And it's really sad that they covered it over, but I mean, that's the layout for all of these books. Actually, what color is... Why is it folded like that? Anyway, that'll fix up. It's grey underneath. That's kind of boring. The rest are like way more exciting colors under the dust jacket. Why is it folded like that? I'm sure it'll come right over time. What I really love about these particular editions are always the end cover art, although these two in the front are kind of dark, but these ones in the back are particularly beautiful, so that's good. And there is also a big map on the inside of the cover. And now that I have this, I will be able to see the pictures as I get to them. The spoilery? No, I don't think so. Throughout the book there are like different pictures. Anyway, that's exciting. I'll be able to figure out where am I up to. Let's have a look. I feel like the pages, like the actual pages of this book feel different than the ones from the other ones in the series. Is that right? Probably not. Day 4. Okay, so I am this far through the book. I mean, that's more than a quarter, maybe a third of the way through. I can also just look at my Kobo and see that it says 31% through. Okay, we didn't need the physical book, but it's nice to have. And actually what we need to do now, even though I kind of want to leave it out on my desk so that I can look at the pictures as I go and like keep track of where I'm up to, but regardless, let's make space for this on the bookshelf. So what we need to do is take some of these books away so that we can move this over one Wind and Truth book with. I'm going to take American Gods off because, as I said in my reread project video the other day, it's been a long time since I read this, and also I don't know how much of a fan of Neil Gaiman I am at the moment. Nowhere near enough. Okay. What if I take away this one, even though I liked having it on my favorites shelf? But now I've got like a little bit of space. What about if I put this back in, but I take these ones out? Okay, so we fit everything on. It's a little bit squishy. I'm not sure. But as I've discussed before, at some point I'm going to be getting more bookshelves for these rooms, and then everything will be shuffled, which will be exciting. And I guess I still need to figure out where I'm going to put these now. Anyway, I'll work that out. Wind and Truth, what am I thinking about it so far? There were a fair amount of battle scenes in day 3 that I'm not a fan of battle scenes in general, but there was also some cool magic stuff, which was exciting. And mostly, even though our characters were still like without a plan, they were getting along okay, I guess. There are some characters that we saw in trouble in day 2 that we haven't seen during day 3. So let's see what's happening to them in day 4, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's a really hard book series to talk about without spoilers. But I'm having an okay time. I definitely still find it really weird, the pacing and the way that will take so much time to focus on like the small personal details of the characters' lives when we're in the middle of this big life or death situation. Like, the balance always seems a little bit weird to me, but I am still enjoying it, so it kind of doesn't matter. The other thing I was doing is this morning I went to my regular infusion at the hospital, so while I was walking there and walking back, I was listening to the Book of Koli, and I think I'm about 60% of the way through now. And it is weird. It's kind of gone in a direction I wasn't expecting, but also at the same time it hasn't really gotten as far as I was expecting in some ways. But like, the weirdness, it's kind of like, I told you that they have this technology, and it's technology from our now almost, or maybe like a slightly futuristic from now. But so these future post-apocalyptic people are sometimes just so misunderstanding the technology, and it's kind of hilarious and ridiculous. But also they're now interacting with this piece of technology, and while most of the other technology that's been mentioned so far is like really useful technology, this technology that they're interacting with now is not, but it's kind of hilarious. Like, so many times while I was listening to it this morning, I was like cracking up laughing. Like, I'm sure people were wondering why I was walking around on the street like with a giant grin on my face, because it's so ridiculous. I couldn't stop laughing. So it's not what I expected, but I think it's weird enough that I'm loving it. But also I can see why it wouldn't appeal to some people now, because it's really weird, but also I love it. I don't know what else to say other than that was weird, but hilarious.
I know where I'm going if nothing's the same. I wish I could see it too. It's been way too long. Wish I could turn back time to see you at Christmas. If only I wish I could see you in front of me. Wish we could decorate the Christmas tree. I wish you could say, see you at Christmas. If only I wish I could see you in front of me. Wish we could decorate the Christmas tree.
So I don't think I've updated you since before Christmas, but Christmas has now been and gone. I didn't do much reading on Christmas Day, as you'd expect, but I did manage to get quite a bit done Boxing Day and today, and so now I'm just past halfway through. I think my Kobo is saying 51%. I just got to the end of day 5, so I'm up to day 6. And I can see, like, I put in a little receipt for the end of day 6, and day 6 looks like it's going to be a pretty short one. And I had a quick skim through, being very careful not to hit any spoilers. And it looks like 7 and 8 are also going to be pretty short days, and then 9 and 10 are longer. I guess that's going to be when all the shit goes down. That's what I would expect. So, days 4 and 5, what do I think about them? I would say actually day 4, I think I was a little bit frustrated about things. The plot felt very all over the place. Like, in some ways, I feel like this book is kind of drowning in so many different things going on, and Brandon's trying to have all these characters have deep, personal, individual moments, but a lot of those don't fit well with the bigger epic story. And I think in the previous books, mostly we would have chapters dedicated to a single character. Maybe we would sometimes skip between a few, but I feel like in Wind and Truth, we're skipping between characters a lot more often. And sometimes that does make it harder to kind of like dig into what's happening. I do think though day 5 was a bit better. I think it helped that some of the things that were happening in day 5, there were quite clear mysteries that have kind of started to reveal themselves, and so I've been like paying very close attention, looking for clues about certain things that I think are going on. So I guess at this point I've got a bunch of theories. I don't know, some of the theories I've made up I think are definitely not right, and I have to be careful that I don't start believing my own theories when there's no evidence for them, or like very little evidence for them. But some of my other theories I think could be true. I definitely expect that all of this is building up for a very epic ending, although I do also have my doubts that it's possible to ever wrap up everything that's going on in this, especially all the references to the bigger Cosmere. Like, those are just going to be left hanging, aren't they? And we're going to have to wait for future Cosmere books to get further into that. Although I know some people are very annoyed that we're probably not getting any more Stormlight Archives for another 5 or 6 years, but I expect that any future Warbreaker or Ghostbloods books are actually Stormlight books, just in a slightly different focus area, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the summary is I'm having a good time with Wind and Truth, even though I do also kind of have a few problems with it. I don't think it's perfect, but I'm still having a good time, and I cannot wait to find out what's going on in the end. I think my Kobo is now saying 18 hours to go, so I was actually thinking about this being my final update for this vlog, but I think I'll just go to the end of the weekend and we'll see how far through I can get. Delusional Penny is once again thinking, could I finish it by the end of the year? She's delusional, but she might not be as far off as I thought she might be. As well, I was listening to the Book of Koli. I think I'm about 80% of the way through now. About 50-ish% of the way through, we finally got to learn more about the world outside of his village. That took longer than I thought it would going into this book. And I can't really say anything about what he's discovering, except that some of it is just fine, but some of it is amazing. Just the links into our actual world, with this being like a post-apocalyptic version of our world, like the links between reality and this fictional story are great. every time they crack me up, or they get me very excited to know, oh, that's what it's referencing. And there's also like still continuing to be some very entertaining uses of technology, or like futuristic technology, but in this non-futuristic kind of post-apocalyptic world. Anyway, I'm having a great time with that. Definitely looking forward to finishing that as well. And other than that, like, we're just in that weird time, right, between Christmas and New Year's, where time doesn't really exist. So I don't really know what's happening. I'm not sure we're even in real life anymore. Okay, so I have made it to the end of day 6, start of day 7, and I have mixed feelings about it. Especially at the very beginning of day 6 started with kind of this philosophical discussion between a couple of characters about whether it's good to like follow the law exactly all the time. And while that could be an interesting philosophical debate, neither of the characters were making particularly good points, so that was annoying. And also, like, I don't know that it really made that much sense in the plot for that conversation to even happen. I'm trying in general to avoid using any characters' names because I feel like at this point any characters being alive is somewhat spoilers. But there is one character who's kind of now trying to enforce their views on other people, and I find it particularly frustrating because previously they've worked with people that have had like a wide range of views, and so it doesn't really make sense to me that they would have such an immature view of different people living their lives in different ways, or that they would approach the conversation in the way that they're approaching it. Like, the whole way that they're acting is just frustrating me. And I keep thinking, actually, recently with that whole Dragonsteel Nexus thing that Brandon Sanderson did, and they did that, like, cosplay of adult... Is that spoilers? I mean, it's everywhere now. They did a cosplay of a wedding, and I saw this reel about the guy who played one of these characters saying that he had found that character so inspirational and based his own leadership skills upon that character's leadership style. And I keep imagining that person reading the way the character's acting now, not inspirational at all. So that's very frustrating to me. And then kind of the rest of day 6 in some ways felt a little bit like filler, like things are happening, but it's just kind of like continuing on. And I do want to say, like, I'm still enjoying this. I think though a lot of that is based on the previous books have made me love these characters so much that I'm enjoying seeing their journey. But I'm also frustrated because there is just so much in this world, and there's too much. This book could never cover everything that's going on. And there's a lot of things, like one example that I can probably give you without too much spoilers is the Chasm Fiends. We've learned something about them, but instead of like experiencing our characters discovering it, we kind of just got it all info dumped to us in a single chapter in a way that I didn't find very satisfying. And like that kind of keeps happening. There's so much going on and we never really get to learn about it properly because we're always moving on to the next thing, and we only get a quick chapter to learn about this new magical thing that could be really cool. It could be a whole book in itself, but I don't know. I just feel like some of it's lacking depth. But also there's so much that it couldn't all be gone into in depth. But then as well, so I did particularly like what happened at the end of day 6 and then the interludes that we get between each days. But the first interlude between day 6 and 7 was like purely, well, not purely, a little bit of like actual Stormlight. Well, is it relevant? I'm actually not sure if it's even relevant what happened at the end of that, but most of that interlude was like characters that are from the bigger Cosmere, and I don't really think they're going to have any relevance in Stormlight. It's more just like bigger Cosmere link stuff. And while I enjoy that because I have read the whole Cosmere, I feel like it's kind of a distraction for this. Like when we're saying there's so much going on in this that there's not enough space for it to go into depth. I'd rather get depth of the things in the Stormlight world than get all these weird Cosmere references that I feel like if you're reading this without having read any of those, you're just going to be like, I wonder what this is going to be about. And then I don't think within this book that it's going to be about anything. Anyway, so frustrating, but I am still looking forward to the last few days, and I am still enjoying this. I'm frustrated because I think this is one of these books where I don't think it's living up to its potential. Even though it's still great, I don't think it's living up to its potential. Anyway, I think for now, my Kobo, let's put that book down because it's way too heavy. My Kobo is saying I'm 58% of the way through and I've got 15 hours to go. I think it's more like 15 and a half hours to go. So I'm feeling pretty good at this point about finishing this within the time that I planned, but I do still think it's probably going to take me at least another week, if not two, given we're about to have New Year's, and that'll mean some non-reading time. And just life, summer. We can't be reading all the time, Brandon. As well, I'm trying to remember, when I last talked to you, had I finished the Book of Koli? I think I hadn't. So I finished the Book of Koli. I loved it. I love what was set up for what the next book is going to be about. I will say for that book, I was surprised by the lack of marauding trees, but I was very pleasantly surprised with the amount of like AI elements and just this tech element, tech being found in a post-apocalyptic world that really just doesn't have the capacity to understand what it is that they've found. And I think it just does such a great job of like introducing concepts and then building them up to like a kind of bizarre reality. So I'm really looking forward to continuing that series. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll see. I did, since I finished that, start reading Fate's Edge by Ilona Andrews, which I think, was it just the start of this blog that I was reading Bayou Moon? So I decided since I'd had a break, I was ready to come back to that series. And I don't know if I ever properly described that series to you, but basically we have the broken, which is our world and has no magic. We have the weird, which has lots of magic. And then in between we have the edge, and only certain people can enter the edge. Maybe I did tell you this because I feel like I edited myself saying that recently. Regardless, the third book, we are following a girl, a new character, whose parents are like kind of criminals and drug addicts, and they have made it so she basically has to participate in this theft. But she's like, this is the last thing. After this, I'm cutting you off. We're also following a guy who is related to the girl from the second book in the series, and he is now going to investigate who did this crime that this girl was a part of, and you know that's going to be the romance once they finally meet each other. But we are actually also getting some other random perspectives, like there are a couple of children from the first book that we're now getting their perspectives. So I do think with these Edge books, they're the most multi-perspective of all of Ilona Andrews' books, and it does make it a little bit more epic in scope, but also I don't think it's to my taste, because I think I find it hard to kind of get that narrative flow going, and maybe it's almost my same complaint that I'm having with Wind and Truth, where I feel like it just means things lose focus a little bit. Still, I'm not very far through with that, and I will continue that again in my next vlog. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, especially if you've read Book of Koli or any of the Edge novels by Ilona Andrews, but also if you're reading Wind and Truth, I'd love to know how that's going for you. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.